again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First graphic here, the hazardous weather graphics, first three, showing no watches, no warnings, no advisories anywhere in the state of Alaska for tonight and tomorrow, and probably Monday as well. Pretty calm weather pattern setting in across the area. You do have a system coming into the Aleutians this afternoon, bringing some winds gusting 35 miles an hour, and that's about it with some rain. That'll be pushing eastward and slowly weakening over the next couple of days. And so moving on to the fire danger, though the rain they had up over the interior last couple of days, especially yesterday, no fire danger anywhere. I didn't see anywhere that even was close to getting into a high category there. So looking pretty good here as far as any outbreak of fires goes. And now moving on to satellite imagery. Here's that band of clouds that brought over an inch of rain to some areas of the north central interior in the Koyukuk Valley yesterday, with half-inch rains back to the west and to the east there also. That moving northward slowly, and the rainfall amounts much lighter. About a third of an inch falling today at Adigan Pass, for example, as well as other passes there along the Brooks Range. Some areas may have had closer to half an inch, but definitely down from the amounts of yesterday. And not much of that spilling into the north slope, although there were a few showers around there that ended. That mostly high clouds, mid and high level clouds out along the Arctic coast there. So a lot of VFR there today. There was some fog over toward Kaktovik. Otherwise, it was not a bad day. And winds out of the southwest, Cape Lisburne gusting to 43 miles per hour this afternoon. So a little bit of wind in association with this portion of the system back to the west, but that's kind of isolated. And looking at out to the west, you can see the next front pretty vividly here, pushing eastward into the western Aleutians. Prefrontal winds gusting 35 to 40 miles an hour, as I mentioned there at Shemya, with light rain and fog, really not a big rain producer, but moisture spreading into the Adak area and eventually Atka, with mostly cloudy skies, very isolated showers, a trough right through here across the Pribilofs. This area of cloudiness really not doing a whole lot, just producing clouds mainly here for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Cloudy skies, Pribilof Islands, but dry. Winds are light. The main precipitation, shower, and rain area back to the northwest in this portion of the system, and that'll actually be drifting northward. Otherwise, high pressure clearing the skies out in some areas. Seward Peninsula here over the western interior, down into Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, and around Kodiak. Mostly cloudy to partly sunny, south central Alaska, with this zone of clouds here. A few scattered showers breaking out. I haven't seen any thunderstorm activity yet. May have some late this afternoon and this evening back in through the Kuskokwim Valley and the Alaska Range. Otherwise, not much going on with this blob of clouds. And as I mentioned here, that band lifting up across the southeast coast, all the precipitation back to the west and southwest of there, with maybe an isolated shower along the north coast this afternoon, but that's about it. Basically just dry and variably cloudy with light winds for the panhandle as well. And rolling that again, and see the motion of this cloud feature again slowly off to the northwest. So it'll be a kind of a cloudy evening here over the central interior of the state with general clearing around it. On the chart today, drew a trough in through here, and again, areas of showers in that associated with that trough, producing anywhere from maybe 1 to 2/10 of an inch of rain at the most. Otherwise, quite light to scattered to none along the North Gulf Coast. Most of south central Alaska escaping any precipitation. Very isolated showers here, mainly over the mountainous terrain of the Aleutian Range and the southwest interior, and possibly the southern Kenai Peninsula areas. But generally just a mostly cloudy day for Kodiak Island with a few sun breaks, isolated showers over the eastern Aleutians, again all associated with this trough, but only bringing fog there to the St. Paul Island area. This band of cloudiness may have kicked off a shower along the North Gulf Coast, but I might have been really reaching even for that. Just clouds and that's it, with no gradient at all, light winds across the Panhandle, and then this diminishing area of precipitation along the Brooks Range there. Again, as I mentioned, about 1/3 of an inch falling during the daytime hours today. High pressure over the eastern, or just off the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, producing low clouds and fog mainly over the eastern areas, but as I mentioned, VFR back to the west, and the system coming into the far western Aleutians will tonight push eastward there, and showers for the far western Aleutians, winds 15 to 25, probably small craft advisories possibly here for the central Aleutians, or there will be small craft advisories for the central Aleutians with rain spreading eastward all the way to possibly on Alaska toward morning. Otherwise, mostly cloudy southeast Bering Sea into Bristol Bay, low clouds and fog in areas. Pretty patchy on the fog though. Generally just kind of a mostly cloudy light wind pattern setting up. Maybe some fog and drizzle over the northern Bering Sea, some of which might work into St. Lawrence Island, but any amounts will be quite light. And high pressure, light winds over all of the western interior and even the eastern interior. I've only got one isobar here across the state and maybe one or two up along the Arctic coast there with some low clouds and fog. Afternoon showers showing up here, or for tonight, showers continuing to diminish across the Brooks Range, kind of splitting off, persisting back to the west here and a little bit off to the east. And this trough across southern Alaska making for areas of rain or showers kind of concentrated here from the eastern upper Yukon, or eastern Tanana Valley, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, roughly Tok Northway, best chance across the Alaska Range in the northern Copper River Basin, the Besna, and those areas, but Gulkana, Glen Allen, probably just some clouds, dry conditions, maybe some clearing down to the North Gulf Coast. This system spreads rain into the southern panhandle tonight with showers possible in the north and Kodiak Island, dry, as well as the southeast Bering here, low clouds and fog. And then for tomorrow, we'll see that showers linger, but they're pretty isolated and much lighter here along the Brooks Range in the afternoon. Otherwise, no change for the Arctic coast. Areas low clouds and fog, patchy fog possible. Otherwise, light winds, high pressure over the Seward Peninsula, partly and mostly sunny. Light winds there. Thunderstorms possibly developing. More likely showers, but again, any of those could develop into a thunderstorm or two here over the southwest interior, as well as from, say, the Talkeetna Mountains across the eastern Alaska Range, possibly the Copper River Basin, but look for partly sunny skies. Kenai Peninsula, Seward, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, as well as Kodiak Island, dry with some sunshine, as well as a few clouds. And then the front weekends actually kicks off to the east there and dissipates. Trough left behind there keeps it unsettled and showery for the panhandle on tomorrow. But again, the winds will be light, the main low center hanging back to the southwest here, as this 997 millibar low just north of Adak tomorrow afternoon on Monday will pull eastward here and weaken a little bit, not too bad, still about 994 millibars, and a little bit of a gradient here in advance of the front, so could see some small craft advisory level winds here south of the Alaska Peninsula, but Bristol Bay 15 knots, and that's about it, with the rain possibly reaching Sitkinak in the afternoon. But it will be a wet day Monday coming up for the Alaska Peninsula. Showery for the eastern Aleutians, back to Adak and Atka. And then those showers will be mostly north of the western Aleutians there, but rain and fog, winds east 10 to 20 for the Pribilofs, with again this trough hanging up over southern Alaska. Isolated or scattered showers, isolated thunderstorms in the afternoon. Again, roughly from the Yukon Delta or Kuskokwim Mountains eastward here. Some of that up.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Still a lot of IFR here, central Bering Sea on out to the west, all the way to the Komodorskis, much of the Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR up to Nunivak Island, and just grazing the southwest coast here, areas of marginal and IFR conditions through the Bering Strait and up along and off the Arctic coast. Some marginal VFR on the Brooks Range, VFR in the interior, some areas of marginal VFR in the Alaska Range, and IFR here along the North Gulf Coast range into the Wrangell Mountains, areas of marginal stuff over the Panhandle. Tomorrow afternoon, same sort of thing here, areas of marginal VFR across all of the southeast coast, and pretty widespread from the Gulf of Alaska into the southeast interior. Still some areas along the Alaska Range, VFR. Interior Alaska, back out to marginal VFR along the coast. VFR, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, and Eastern Brooks Range, maybe some marginal VFR. North Slope, mostly VFR. IFR right along the central western Arctic coast, and a lot of IFR over the central and western Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And then for Monday morning, IFR here from the Bering Strait across the Chukchi Sea, and then right along the coastline, central western Arctic coast there, and then back down toward the east side. Good VFR holding over much of the interior, and IFR pretty persistent here along the North Gulf Coast, northeast Prince William Sound, and up across the mountainous areas here, probably up toward Mentasta, and then back toward almost to the Talkeetna is mostly marginal VFR there. Cook Inlet VFR, marginal Kodiak Island, no change out here over the Bering Sea, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. And then the afternoon, the IFR tends to break up a little bit here to marginal VFR, but still pretty socked in along and south of the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Good VFR over the interior again, marginal for the southeast coast. Some areas of VFR in there over the central areas. Marginal VFR with isolated IFR here, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast areas, up in toward mainly the eastern Copper River Basin, and some IFR lingering there right along and off the central and western Arctic coast. Passes tomorrow. Anaktuvik starting out marginal, becoming VFR. That forecast holds also for Adigan and for Lake Clark and Merrill. Marginal VFR. Rainy, occasionally marginal. And for windy, occasionally marginal VFR is possible on the southern entrance. Otherwise, it'll be VFR through the pass and to the north. Isabel, mostly marginal VFR, while Mentasta will be occasionally marginal. And for Tanita, looks good. VFR flying, although skies will be cloudy and probably overcast. Portage, though, marginal VFR, trending toward VFR in and throughout the afternoon toward evening. Chilkoot and White, right on the edge of being marginal at times. I optimistically call it VFR day tomorrow. And for the freezing levels here, about 6,000 feet, 6 to 8,000 feet roughly across the southeast coast. Really not much of a thermal gradient anywhere here from the Gulf of Alaska into the interior, even up to the Arctic coast there, with about 6,000 feet or so, and then back down to 4 out here over the eastern Bering Sea, and then pick it up to 8,000 feet there for the central Aleutians. Icing, a couple of bands here of areas of light rime icing, I would say, are possible. Pribilof's down to the Alaska Peninsula, another band here over the Fox Islands, north of Adak and Atka. Area of mixed icing here across southern Alaska, but about 6,000 feet in the zone. That's areas of, not solid. And the southern panhandle, probably a little more solid area of some rime icing of the light to very isolated, considerable variety there. Again, all this above 6,000 feet. Jet stream, again, lack of gradient here, thermal gradient across Alaska, so real light wind flow here, really at all elevations. The main jet down to the south here, 100 to 120 knots, cuts northward, but east of the panhandle there, although this upper level low will circulate moisture into the central and southern areas later tonight and tomorrow. Arctic jet up to the north, 9,000 feet southeast, 20 to 25. Over the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians there back toward Atka. Light winds over the interior, high pressure, and 3,000 feet, about the same pattern here. 25 to 30 head of this system coming across the eastern Aleutians. That's the strongest winds will be in that area. Pretty light back to the west, high pressure, light winds over the interior, and smooth turbulence-wise, except for some moderate chop here. Atka over to Unalaska Island.
Well, you have to love boats, and you have to love water, and you have to love Alaska, and you have to be a good boat operator, and you have to like it. And then you have to like people. So there's a number of factors that go into what makes up a water taxi operator. My name's Mako Haggerty. That's Mako like taco.
Good morning. What's going on? Yeah, good, yeah.
I live here in Homer, Alaska. I've lived here since 1982. That's 32 years. I came up here, I was a commercial fisherman, and then I got into water taxiing here in Kachemak Bay in 1996. and I've been doing the water taxi ever since. There's no such thing as a typical day, and there's no such thing as a typical day in commercial fishing, and there's no such thing as a typical day in water taxi, which is why becoming a water taxi operator was so easy for me and difficult for others, is because it's not a 9-to-5 job. A lot of people aren't mariners, so they don't understand why maybe I would do this all the time. Maybe only pick the nice days. But I actually like being out there on the rough days too. It's challenging, exciting, and fun. If you're just running a boat on flat, calm water all the time, that can be maybe a little bit boring. So every condition out there on the water I find to be enjoyable. I guess in the back of our mind there's always danger, but I guess something could always happen. It's not something we focus on. I wanted to be a service to the people that live here, and that's basically, I think, what we've become. There's only two ways across the bay. One's by boat and one's by air. And if they can't fly into places like Seldovia, then the water taxi is the next alternative. There are people that are afraid of flying. There are people that have a lot of gear. Planes don't go everywhere. In fact, airplanes and even float planes are fairly limited in some of the places that they can access, and boats can access more places. We can pack more gear. And then, of course, there's the people that would rather take a boat than fly in a plane. Of course I've got fears. In fact, I would say that probably running boats was facing one of my fears. You know, drowning is, yeah, I do. Yeah, I would say that it's a reoccurring dream, actually. I spend my entire life on the water, so that's probably just natural.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
During the summer, I'll take a lot of visitors across the bay to the park, and it'll be a bright, sunny summer day, and the water will be blue, and we might even see a whale crossing the bay, and people will come up to me and they'll tell me I have the best job ever. And I think that sometimes I do. But there are days that we go out there and we're battling the weather, the waves. We've got people on the other side of the bay that absolutely need to be picked up. So it's not a matter of choice whether or not we cross the bay. So sometimes I'll have people actually say, boy, your job sucks. Happiness is different for everybody, but yesterday I was out in the boat with some photographers, and the sun was out and the weather was really nice, and it was still winter, and we anchored up and got just some fantastic wildlife pictures there yesterday, and I realized there was no other place I'd rather be.
Very dangerous weather situation.
When hurricanes and tropical storms come ashore, the single largest cause of death is not the wind, but the water. Flooding is the cyclone's dangerous second wave, as illustrated when Allison hit Houston in June 2001.
During the day on that Tuesday, we went from expecting a lot of thunderstorms and heavy rain and some elevated tide to actually having a tropical storm making landfall in less than 12 hours.
The tropical storm came ashore with average winds of only 50 miles per hour. Then it stalled, trapped between two high-pressure systems.
Counterclockwise winds around that really pumping in the Gulf moisture. So
Allison drifted back and forth across southeast Texas for 4 straight days.
Another good chance of rain and heavy thunderstorms.
Big question many of us are asking tonight, is the rain over?
On Friday, the tropical storm unleashed a deluge.
The wind was blowing and everything. You know, we thought it was a tornado coming back, a tornado, but everything was flooded over. Yeah, the water came all the way up to here, this high.
Large sections of the nation's fourth largest city were underwater. More than 1 million people had been impacted over an estimated 130 square mile area. In the hardest hit neighborhoods, floodwaters reached a depth of 10 feet. The disaster drove home the importance of Houston's waterways in helping to reduce flood damage.
The whole community's come together. Huge tunneling and drainage projects around the system to carry the water away from the coastal communities and put it in the Gulf of Mexico.
Houston's hope is that post-Allison improvements will prevent the next storm from paralyzing the city. Because nature, one day, is certain to issue another challenge. For the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Nick Walker.
Well, Alaska Pipeline was formed in 1970. Practically since the beginning of AKwx, we've been involved as a supporter of public media in Alaska.
We will now push the magic switch and Channel 7 is on the air.
Sometimes you are the primary source of information for a community, and I think you can't undervalue that. You can't imagine what these communities would be like without that source of information and storytelling.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis here for Saturday. Not a lot of change, about the same position here as far as the outer ice edge goes, with open water across the southern Chukchi Sea to the Bering Strait, and not a lot of change anticipated for the next 5 or 6 days. So going on to the coastal water forecast here, east to southeast winds 20 knots, 7 to 8 foot seas on the south coast, northwest breeze 10 to 15, north side. Lynn Canal, south winds 15 in the afternoon, southeast 20 for Clarence Strait, with those seas at about 4 feet. Pretty light winds from the north for Stevens Passage. Small craft advisories come into the forecast for Lynn Canal on Monday with 5 foot seas. Light south winds 10 knots, Stevens Passage, northwest 15 Clarence Strait, northwest of 20 here on the south coast with those seas 5 to 6 feet. West 15 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas on the north coast. Prince William Sound, light southwest wind at 10 with 2 foot seas, and westerlies 10 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, and from the Barren Islands up south of the Kenai Peninsula, southwesterlies 15, 5 foot seas, same thing for Kamishak Bay. South 15, southern Cook Inlet, and a light southwest breeze north of the Forelands. Outlook for Monday, same thing here, southwest 10, north of the Forelands, south 15, southern Cook Inlet, south 20 for Kamishak Bay, southwesterlies 20 knots for the Barrens, and then the North Gulf Coast southwest at 15 knots. Prince William Sound southwest at 10 with 2 foot seas. And for the Kodiak Island area, southwest winds 20 knots for tomorrow with 5 foot seas. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southwest 15, and then those turn southerly there from Castle Cape to Cape Saratchev, and the north side of the peninsula southeast at 15. Light southwest breeze there for Bristol Bay, 1 foot sea height, pretty slight. And then for Monday, the winds will come up to about 20 knots. Seas go up a little bit there to 3 feet. Small craft advisories here for the Alaska Peninsula, east-southeast 25 knots with seas up to 10 feet in the Pacific side. And actually those small craft advisories extend clear up to Sitkinak there. Otherwise, Kodiak, southwest 20, 4 foot seas. And for the Aleutians, not too bad out here to the west, kind of variable 15 to 20. Small craft advisory southeast 25 to 30 from roughly Atka, possibly Adak, but Atka will probably have the stronger winds. Eastward across all the Fox Islands, pretty uniform, 25 to 30 knot winds with 5 to 10 foot seas. Monday, lighter winds in store for the central Aleutians here, 15 to 20 out of the west. West-southwest become south-southeast 15 to 20 there across Unalaska Island with 6 to 9 foot seas. And for the western Aleutians, northwest 15 to 20, and those sea heights at about 7 feet. Southeast 15 tomorrow for the Pribilofs. Same thing here along the southwest coast, 15 knot winds. And St. Lawrence Island, southeast of 15, but Norton Sound, light northwest breeze, and St. Matthew Island, 20 knots from the southeast. And for Monday, Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, light northeast winds, northeast 15, north of Nunivak Island, easterlies at 20 coming out of the bay here, south of Nunivak Island. Same thing for the Pribilofs, east 20 knots, 7-foot seas, northeast 15, St. Matthew Island. And for the area from Wales up to Cape Thompson, 15 knots out of the south, Cape Thompson, Cape Beaufort, 20 knots, so a lot lighter than what you saw at Cape Lisburne today. For tomorrow, southwest 20 on the west side, 215 on the central coast, light variable winds, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, 10 knots or less. And then that holds into Monday as well. We're throwing easterly direction there for practically no wind. And southwest 10, central Arctic coast, south 15, the west side, all the way down to Cape Beaufort. And then the Chukchi Sea, same thing, south winds 10 knots, a little bit lighter, no seas running 2 to 4 feet. For tonight, showers will continue to diminish along the Brooks Range, and they'll stay dry over the north slope with possible sunshine. Otherwise, the Arctic coast, not too bad. Patchy areas, low clouds and fog, mainly east there in conjunction with that surface high. Dry western interior with high pressure, but this trailing edge of that trough could kick off some isolated showers. Kilburg-Auckland Mountains, maybe the southern Kuskokwim Valley, but nothing significant. Areas of showers and rain, Copper River Basin to the eastern Alaska Range, probably in the North Waitok area, possibly Delta, but dry toward Eagle. Showers over the northern panel develop into a rain, especially after midnight here as that front pushes in toward the southeast coast. More rain in the Aleutians pushing to the Fox Islands, into the Alaska Peninsula tomorrow. Showers for the Panhandle, showers and thunderstorms, southern interior, and about the same on Monday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.
Well, Alyeska pipeline